McLatchie. McLatchie. The science guide. We're looking at some of the scientific problems, and one of the ones that comes up all the time is the whole production of semen in the Quran. Help me with this one, because this is a real problem, isn't it?
Right. So if you open up your Quran and go to Surah 86, verses 5 through 7, you want to
let me read it here for you. Surah 86, verses 5 to 7 says, "So let man see from what he is created. He is created from a water gushing forth, proceeding from between the backbone and the ribs." Ooh la la. Go ahead.
Well, semen, of course, isn't produced between the waters and the chest bones as the Quran contends. Rather, it's produced in the seminal vesicle behind the bladder. Sperm is produced in the testes, and the semen is produced in the seminal vesicle behind the bladder. And so the Quran.
So it's much further down,
yeah, it's much
behind
further
the bladder. That's
right.
where the semen is produced, not way up here between the backbone and the rib,
right.
which is halfway up your body. It's got the wrong location.
Right.
Oh, so we've got a real problem here.
Assalamu alaikum YouTube, this is Imran here, the FOT Foundation. This is a video response to Dr. Nabil Qureshi from Act 17 Apologetics, who's posted a video regarding Surah 86 verses 6 to 7. So I'm going to start off by reading the verses that we're talking about and giving you a translation. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلينظر الإنسان مما خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين صلب والترائب. So I read from verse 5 actually down to verse 7 there, so let me just give you the translation here that I have in my hand. And it goes as follows. So let man observe from what he was created. He was created from a fluid ejected, emerging from between a sulb and at-tara'ib. Now I deliberately haven't translated as-sulb and at-tara'ib because this is essentially the matter at hand. What I'm going to do now is post the translations that Dr. Qureshi prefers to use. So Dr. Qureshi puts forward a summary of his arguments, and essentially what he's saying is that these verses refer to sperm production from being from between the backbone of a man and the ribs of a man, and he said this is scientifically inaccurate. He also then says that in any attempt to try and find alternative meanings for the Arabic words is textual acrobatics. And then he goes on to say that any exegesis of the Quran, any trying to interpret the meaning or understand the verses in a greater depth, is dishonest, and actually you should allow the translations to speak for itself. He then goes on to read an email from somebody who actually tries to explain a little bit of detail behind the verse, and explains that as-sulb can refer to a man and at-tara'ib can refer to a woman particularly and specifically. And so this then would be a meeting of fluid from a man and fluid from a woman that go on to create the human being. And his response to this actually is very disappointing. What he essentially does is to say this is not what the Quran is saying, and then he refers back to the translations that he prefers to use, saying that he trusts these translations. So Dr. Qureshi's arguments actually display a number of flaws, but the primary flaw, which actually is a theme throughout this presentation, I'll try and highlight. And essentially is that he treats Arabic like it is a dead language, and I'll explain further. The Bible, for example, is written in languages originally that were ancient Greek or ancient Hebrew, which are essentially lost languages or dead languages. There are only a handful of scholars around the world who can explain the words within the language, and therefore tend to be the translators. Now, Arabic is actually very different to that. It's actually a living language, and what I mean by that is there are hundreds of millions of people around the world who speak, read and write the language of the Quran. Now, what this does actually gives you a huge access to etymology that you probably wouldn't get to the same degree in other languages. Now, Arabic is a Semitic language, and it has a root-based system, so every word is formed of essentially 3 roots. There are exceptions, but on the whole every word is formed of essentially 3 roots, and from those roots other related meaning words can be derived. So this is not turning the word night into day or the word black into white, but what this is to take known, related and accepted meanings for an Arabic word and using them in your translations to provide a meaning that's closer to the context and also closer to the knowledge that one has at the time. And this is actually not textual acrobatics, because the Arabic word within the Quran has not changed. It's just that the meaning of the word, which is available and known and accepted, is being applied to fit with the context and fit with knowledge. One of the ways actually to demonstrate this actually is to provide other translations that are already available that Dr. Qureshi has avoided because they don't support the argument that he puts forward. So what I'm going to do is put these translations forward for you to see. I'll give 4 translations from non-Muslims, one of whom is a Christian reverend, and the rest will be from Muslims, and we'll take it from there. So it becomes blatantly obvious actually that Dr. Qureshi's reliance upon the clear and obvious translations of Shaka and Yusuf Ali is a little bit disingenuous when we have all of these other translations that are already available which don't support his argument. In fact, As-Sulb here is translated unanimously by all of these translators, including the 4 non-Muslims, as loins. And interestingly actually, the Muhammad Asad translation, which is the last one that I posted, separates the verse 7 into As-Sulb as being masculine and At-Tara'ib as being feminine, and even more interestingly actually translate At-Tara'ib as being the pelvic arch of the woman. Now, the fact that these other translations are available and they don't support the argument that Dr. Qureshi puts forward is sufficient to put his reliance upon Shakir and Yusuf Ali translation as being disingenuous, as I mentioned. But actually I want to build the case a little bit further. What I would like to show is that the translations that I have cited and the meanings put forward by some of these other translations are valid, known and accepted meanings for the words that are in the Quran. So here we have the Handswear Dictionary of Modern Written Arabic. This is the 3rd edition from 1976. So this is page 521, and we have the root that we're looking for, the Sad Lam Ba, Saluba. The exact phrase that we're looking for is Sulb, and here we have the same root as I mentioned, but actually in the form of Sulb there. And the meanings are there: hard, firm, solid, stiff, rigid, which are all euphemisms for the male member anyway, but let's go further. Steel also, a related meaning. Spinal column and backbone, which is the translations that Dr. Qureshi prefers to use. And here we have loins. So loins is a valid, known and accepted meaning for the word as-sulb. So this is page 92 of the Handswear Dictionary of Modern Written Arabic. Let's just go down to find tara'ib. And here we have the exact form of the word there. And in this dictionary it says tara'ib, chest and thorax are the 2 meanings given here. And here we have Dr. Edward Lane's lexicon. Dr. Edward Lane died in 1867, and this is basically the 8-part or the 8-volume work that he produced. A very in-depth look into meanings of words in the Arabic language. Let's see what we can find here. So here we are on page 1711 of Lane's lexicon, and this is the root that we're looking for. It starts off actually down here, so let's go there. And just generally talking about it, it says that this is said of a thing and of a man, so we have a reference here to it being towards a man. It and he was or became hard, firm, rigid, stiff, tough, strong, robust, sturdy and hardy. Well, we can see some of the euphemisms there for the male member, but let's actually look a little bit further. So here we are on page 1712 of Lane's lexicon, again dealing with the same root as before, and we see again the similar meanings repeated. This is actually very close to the form we're looking for, sulbun, hard, firm, rigid, stiff, tough and strong. In fact, exactly the same meanings with this particular word. And let's go specifically to the area that we're looking for and the meanings that are available for that. So here we have an example of the word backbone, and this is what it says about it. The backbone, i.e. the bone extended from the qahil, or the base of the neck, to the, let's try and find the other end of this, to the ajb, or the rump bone, the bone upon which the neck is set, extending to the root of the tail in a beast, and in a man to the osos, or the coccyx. It goes on to say the portion of the back, any portion of the back containing vertebra, and this is the important thing to note here, and particularly the lumbar portion, the loins. So this confirms Hansware's description of sulb as the loins, and this actually says that this word specifically refers to that region as well. And this is the important thing to note here, and particularly the lumbar portion, the loins. So this confirms Hansware's description of sulb as the loins, and this actually says that this word specifically refers to that region as well. It goes on to talk about how this word is used, and Dr. Lane then quotes an authority who mentions a phrase of the Arabs. So this is authority whose initials are given there, who mentions a phrase of the Arabs, but essentially says that these are the sons of their loins. So this is and we see the root there, the sad, the lam and the ba, and this is actually them plural. So we see that these are the sons of their loins, and then it goes on to explain this. So this is the phrase in which this word is used, and we see it refers specifically to the loins, and it goes on to say, because of the sperma of the man is held to proceed from the sulb of the man, the sulb of the man. So actually this another evidence. So we had earlier on that this is said about a man. Now this is the sulb of the man, so referring specifically to the man. And very interestingly, actually, as is said in the, and then a reference is given here. Now this is actually very amazing. So this is Roman numerals. L stands for 50, X stands for 10. We have three of those. That's 80. V is 5, so that's 85, and the I is 1, so that's 86. So it's referring to Surah 86 verse 7. So the sulb of the man, as is said in Surah 86. So we can see clearly this is talking about the sulb of the man. So now we're on page 301 of Lane's lexicon, and we're looking at this word here, tara'ib, and this gives meanings as part of the breast, which is in the place of the collar or the necklace, the bones of the breast, so breastbones is the common translations that we see. And it goes on to talk about the four ribs on the right side and the four ribs on the left thereof. So it actually talks about the formation, actually the ribs that arch up almost to form the link with the breastbone. So Dr. Lane quotes authority here whose initials are here, MF, says that Tara'ib relates to males and females in common. So this is actually saying that it relates to males and females in common. This is one authority quoted. Dr. Lane then goes on to say, and this is very, very important, but most of the authors on strange words affirm decidedly that it is peculiar to women. So there's two things that we learn from here. A, that this is a strange word, a rare Arabic word. And most of the authors, aside from the one quoted above, most of the authors on strange words are quoted Dr. Lane, affirmed that decidedly, so not just an affirmation, but a decided affirmation. This is actually very specifically that this is particular or peculiar to women. Now, the thing I would like you to bear in mind is that the term breastbone is obviously not particular to women. So the sense in which this is particular to women is something that I'm quite interested in. But what we confirm here, this is a strange Arabic expression and it's particular to women. So what I've demonstrated here is that as-sulb is referring to loins, as in the phrase these are the sons of their loins, as was given in the Lane's lexicon, and is specific to the man. And at-tara'ib is a rare Arabic expression, a strange Arabic word, which most authorities say is particular to women and is descriptive of the breastbones or the ribs. So what I'm going to look at now is how Muhammad Asad explains the word at-tara'ib as the pelvic arch of the woman. So if I were to go to, for example, islamcity.com and look at Quran search and then find Surah 86 and the Muhammad Asad translation, and if you look at the verse that we're dealing with specifically here, which is verse 7, and this is the Muhammad Asad translation, and it's translated as issuing from the loins of the man, as-sulb, which we've confirmed actually with Hans Weir's dictionary and Dr. Lane's lexicon, and the pelvic arch of the woman. There's actually a translator's note written by Muhammad Asad, so let's have a read of what that actually says. It says the plural noun, tara'ib, rendered by me as pelvic arch, has also the meaning of ribs, or arch of bones, according to most of the authorities who have specialized in the etymology of rare Quranic expressions. This term relates specifically to the female anatomy, and then he quotes Taj al-Urus. The Taj al-Urus, as far as I'm aware, is not available in the English translation. If it is, and someone could forward me a link to that, or where I could get that, then I'd love to get hold of it. But essentially I can confirm most of the information within this comment by the sources that I have. So we know that the meaning is ribs from Hans Weir and from the Dr. Lane's lexicon. The term breastbones or the ribs is descriptive of an arch of bones, and according to the Dr. Lane's lexicon, we know that this is a rare Quranic expression and relates specifically to females. So I have no issues with accepting actually that this is the pelvic arch, unless someone can demonstrate to me actually that this is incorrect. I have no reason to doubt that it is correct. So in response to Dr. Qureshi, what I would say is that I've demonstrated by using known and established meanings of the word as-sulb and at-tara'ib that these verses are talking about a fluid that gushes forth between as-sulb, the loins of the man, and this would be referring to the semen, and the at-tara'ib, the pelvic arch of the woman, which would be referring to the ovum, which is surrounded by the follicular fluid. So actually your case for scientific inaccuracy actually is deficient. Now, have I then turned a potentially miraculous statement into an obvious statement? Then I think you'd have to look at when the ovum and the follicular fluid were discovered, and I think you'd find that actually this was quite recent as opposed to when Muhammad, peace be upon him, was around. What I'd like to do now actually is that apply Dr. Qureshi's understanding of the verse as being specifically referring to the man only, and apply his preferred translations of Shakir and Yusuf Ali, and demonstrate actually even these, with this understanding, are not incorrect. Okay, so here we have a sagittal view of the male pelvis, the lower half of it anyway, and if we apply Dr. Qureshi's understanding of the verse, we have the coccyx, which is the lower end of the spine, the athulb, and the ribs, the at-tara'ib, would be somewhere above this region. So anywhere between athulb and at-tara'ib would be where the emission the Quran is talking about it would be coming from. Now most people, from what I've read on some of the comments left on Dr. Qureshi's video blog, think that the ejaculate comes from the testes. This of course is incorrect. The testes simply produce the sperm, which only form about 1 or 2% of the final volume of the semen that's ejaculated anyway, so this is not correct. The sperm then is moved up around the bladder, actually the rest via the vas deferens, and the rest of the vas deferens actually isn't drawn on here, is moved up around the bladder into the seminal vesicles. The remaining volume, the 95 to 98% of the semen volume, is produced from the seminal vesicles and actually the prostate as well. And we have the Cowper gland, which isn't actually labelled in this diagram, which also releases some mucus into the urethra there as well. So what happens is that the semen is released along the ejaculatory duct and out through the urethra, And this, where is this released from? Baina, between Athulb, the coccyx, and At-Tara'ib, the ribs, according to the translations that Dr. Qureshi uses. So what I've demonstrated actually is that even using Dr. Qureshi's preferred translations, and if you apply those translations to the anatomy in a fair manner, then you realize actually these verses are still scientifically accurate. However, any look at the verses in much more detail, ignoring the false premise of the textual acrobatics that Dr. Qureshi put forward in his presentation, you get revealed much more specific information of a scientific nature. Assalamu alaikum, YouTube.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
والسماء والطارق وما أدراك ما الطارق النجم الثاقب إن كل نفس لما عليها حافظ فلينظر الإنسان مما خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب إنه على رجعه لقادر يوم تبلى السرائر فما له من قوة ولا ناصر والسماء ذات الرجع والأرض ذات الصدع إنه لقول فصل وما هو بالهزل إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا.